The answer is different in different types of operations, but we're hoping to find common ground in the benefits of profitability to our industry. Leading us in this discussion will be Russell Nemetz. Telling agricultural story is Russell's does best. As an award-winning NAFB farm broadcaster, he takes great pride in being one of agriculture's biggest advocates. Raised along the Milk River near Chinook, Montana, production agriculture has always been part of his life. In fact, his family continues to run a cow-calf operation there. Today, he provides daily ag radio programs on the Western networks in Billings, Montana, and Ag Information Network in Walla Walla, Washington. Russell, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Mark, and it is indeed a pleasure to be joining all of you here in historic Oklahoma City for the Livestock Marketing Association's annual convention, trade show, and of course that coveted World Livestock Auctioneer Championship that so many people are always interested in taking home that coveted award. And, you know, every single day, my team and I, which includes Lane Nordland, Paul Humphrey, and Rachel Gable, take great pride in delivering the latest farm and ranch news and, of course, those important markets to our listeners and our television viewers on 110 radio stations in 10 western states every single day on broadcast TV still in Montana and Wyoming, and, of course, the social media channels like our Facebook page, website, Instagram, and YouTube. And producer profitability, and rightfully so, truly is one of those biggest issues and topics that we cover, and rightfully so. There's a lot riding on producer profitability, and there's a lot with this topic for you folks in the livestock industry. And I truly believe that every once in a while an industry is given a tremendous opportunity to reinvent itself. That means stopping, taking a look back at where we've been, where we're at right now, and where we want to be in the future. And in my opinion, for too long, the U.S. livestock industry has worried about those controversial issues that have divided and separated us and really hampered our industry and our producers to speak with a united voice. And so as we come together here this morning here in Oklahoma City, I think we have a real opportunity to ask ourselves and hopefully be empowered after this panel once we leave OKC, are we okay with that? Are we okay having these controversial issues continue to dictate our industry and tell us where we're going to be, if we're even going to have that opportunity, as the opposition, those people in the animal activist world and the environmentalists out there who are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for us to keep doing what we've always done, and that's fight amongst ourselves, not speaking with a unified voice. Those are the men and women that want to put animal agriculture out of business. So I hope after this panel, we leave here empowered and we have the guts. We have the guts to leave Oklahoma City and put those controversial issues aside. Think about what we're going to do as an industry. And I say we because I'm also very much intimately involved with this conversation and this topic, because if I don't have you guys in business, if we don't have our farmers and ranchers in business, guess what? My business also fails. So I hope we have the guts to leave OKC, to put those controversial issues aside and think about what we really need to be focused on and start speaking with a unified voice and really talking about those issues that we can agree on, things like producer profitability, things like estate taxes, and how we're going to keep the younger generation on these agricultural operations across this great country of ours. So for the next hour or so, we're going to take a deep dive into this producer profitability topic. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's panel, and we'll get underway with that. representing the American Sheep Industry Association as its current president, and also a purebred Angus breeder out of Wyoming. Diamond M. Angus is Brad Boner. We also have Carol Medeiros, a certified public accountant with us here in OKC, and they own Rancho Casino Angus in both California and Nebraska. We have Jake Parnell, Cattlemen's Livestock Market, Western Video Market, and of course a leader amongst you here with the Livestock Marketing Association out of California. And last but certainly not least, our friend Matt Perrier from Dalebanks Angus out of Kansas. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this important producer profitability initiative panel here at the LMA convention. And if I could ask each of you just to kind of give us a brief rundown, a little bit about yourself, your family, and your individual operations, and maybe why you just decided to be live with us here in OKC, plus being live streamed on the LMA's YouTube channel for the worldwide audience out there. Brad, go ahead and tell us what brought you to OKC and why this is such an important topic.
Sure, I think the reason we're, the main reason the sheep industry is involved in this, and I've known Joe for 30 plus years, Joe Goggins, and we saw that when LMA came out with this initiative, and it fits into exactly the areas of concern we've had as our producers on the top of their mind as well, and so it was a no-brainer to be involved in this. I'm a fifth generation rancher in central Wyoming. About half our units are cattle, half of them are sheep, and so maybe a little more unique perspective on agriculture than some here. So.
Carol, tell us a little bit about your family, your operation, and why this topic is so near and dear to your heart.
Well, I grew up on a small farm, Central California. My husband did as well. We met really young in college. Decided to start into the Angus business. I became a CPA. I grew up with a dad who had 4 girls, and way ahead of his time, he wanted us to be able to take care of ourselves, and accounting and being a CPA was a good idea. So I always pretty much did what my dad said to do because he was that guy. It worked out great. And so that being said, we went through though the early 80s. So what was happening in a family situation was no more. My husband and I decided to keep going, raise our kids on a ranch, work together, and today we made it. We actually made it through all of that, worked hard, and now have a ranch in California and Nebraska. I retired 6 years ago. So I'm full-time with my husband going back and forth. But I had 40 years as a certified public accountant, and the last 15 years especially was heavy estate planning. But before that, heavy tax planning. We were in the middle of California, lots of agriculture, different kinds, and it was very passionate for me to help families. That was the goal.
Well, and as I told you before this panel started, I mean, it's so, whether it's in Nebraska or California, I mean, it's just so darn important anymore to have an accountant that is ag-minded, that understands what we do in this business, whether it's production agriculture or agribusiness. And so thank you. And I would have to anticipate that following this panel that you're gonna have a lot of questions, out there from the audience, on that topic, death tax, that we always say we need to talk about and do, but too many times we don't do it, and we really get ourselves in a bind. So thank you for being here. Jake, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this panel.
Absolutely. Thank you, Russell. Jake Parnell. I live in Sacramento, California. I've got Cattlemen's Livestock Market just south of Sacramento in Galt, California, and Western Video Market as well. The last 10 or 12 years, I've been heavily involved with the Livestock Marketing Association. I sit on the board of directors for the Western region of LMA. And I'm here because I come from a unique place. I come from the nation's largest agriculture state, but also the nation's most populated state. A place that faces challenges unlike anywhere else in terms of, the population, the environment, the animal activists, and a place where we are challenged to make our farmers and ranchers profitable, but a place we need to keep them profitable. And so when we started talking about this a couple years ago, it struck me as probably the most important thing the Livestock Marketing Association has done since I've been around, and that's to help us as market dealers and operators keep our producers in business, because then we stay in business. So that developed my passion in this, and that's what has led me to continue to try to push this initiative nationwide.
Perfect. Well, we're happy to have you here and look forward to hearing more and some of your thoughts on why this is such an important topic and how we keep the momentum going once we leave here. Matt, tell us a little bit about your background and what you're up to these days, and of course your family.
Okay, sure, Russell. Thank you very much. Matt Perrier, family and I own and operate Dalebanks Angus, seed stock operation in southern Flint Hills of Kansas, northwest of Eureka. Wife Amy, and we have 5 children, and then my mother and father, Tom and Carolyn Perrier. I'd be the 5th generation, I guess, of our family there in the Flint Hills. And also, and this would probably get at a little bit of why I'm here, also started a crazy thing called a podcast about 2 or 3 years ago. And on that, we talk a lot about the issues that I've heard you all talk about for the last 24 to 36 hours, and I know that you all have been talking about since your existence, but it's for sure, as Jake said, in the last 2 or 3 years, and that is producer profitability. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I guess I first came into this fold thanks to Brody Peak on your board and a livestock market owner and manager north of me at Emporia about an hour. He had one of the very first, I think, Chelsea producer profitability, the first session, and that was, we sat there in his cafe and talked about some things that are always on our minds, regardless if we're cow-calf producers or farmers or market operators or feed yard operators or even packers, processors, and retailers, and that is, how do I keep my family in this business? And those are hard conversations because they're always different, and they always touch on some areas that give us a little heartburn. And instead of hiding behind those and saying, well, he looks at it or she looks at it differently than I did, your group went ahead and fleshed those out. And then they fleshed them out in Billings, and they fleshed them out in California and Alabama and every place that you've done that. And I think today you've gotten some things started. We may not have any answers. We may not have any answers after we get done here, but you've gotten some conversations started that I think can help us as an industry, and that's where I am enthused and excited to be here part of this.
Well, and I agree. I mean, when it comes to producer profitability, and as I said in my opening remarks, I mean, so many times, whether it's this industry or the grain industry or the sheep industry, we just get tunnel visioned and we get locked into thinking this is what we have to focus on. And we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, in which a lot of cases associations just don't have, when we look at some of those animal activist groups and those environmental groups out there that are just chomping at the bit to put us out of business. And so if we can put those issues aside and have these meaningful discussions about what really needs to happen here in agriculture, and have those tough discussions like, how are we going to transfer these ag operations to the next generation, whether they're family or maybe some another family that isn't directly related to us but wants to have a career and a life in production agriculture, and that's what we really need to focus on. And as part of this panel, I mean, you know, let's start that discussion, and let's feel free to talk amongst ourselves up here and have that conversation today. And I guess, you know, going back to one of my interviews last year with Joe Goggins on this very topic in Billings, and he said, the LMA really has the opportunity here to be the industry lead, to kind of help pave the way and really develop a roadmap. And as we heard LMA's Chelsea Good last night, I mean, it's a hell of a lot easier to accomplish something if we're working as a team versus trying to do it all as an individual back in our own, you know, our own rural communities. So I mean, Jake, just talk on that. I mean, how this really is an opportunity for LMA to pave the way, to develop the roadmap, to go back home to our auction markets and our employees and our rural communities, and let's spread this producer profitability message like wildfire.
Absolutely, Russell. It is the perfect opportunity. And LMA's role in this is everybody sitting in this room and our 830 member markets and dealers nationwide. And that's because as we go back to our communities, we are the true voice of what our producers feel. Yes, other organizations, trade organizations, the Farm Bureau, NCBA, and others, they have memberships, but they don't hear from their members on a daily basis like a market owner or market operator. They call us to talk about the weather. They call us when they have a new grandchild. They call us about the market and any other personal issues, or just to be a friend, or they come to our kids' graduations, or we go to theirs. And so we are so connected to our rural communities, we are so connected to our producers, that the opportunity for me here, for LMA here, and us as market operators and dealers is to be proactive, to get us away from reacting like so often we do in animal agriculture, react to each issue. It's about creating this conversation about where we're going and how we're moving forward. It's about bringing memberships that are loyal, or producers that are loyal to other organizations that might disagree on 5 or 10% of the issues, but for the most part, they agree on where the future of this industry needs to be. It's bringing them together from a grassroots level. It's forcing that conversation amongst staff and amongst leadership in these organizations, and it's done by us going back to our members, talking to our members. Reach out to your local Cattlemen's Association. Reach out to your Stock Growers Association. Maybe it's a Rotary Club in Turlock, where Carol's from, that's all dairymen. Reach out to them and start that conversation of what do we need to do to survive in the future. And yeah, we've talked about estate tax. We've talked about access to ground and forage and being more competitive. We've talked about bringing the next generation along. As this moves across the country, there will be others that have ideas that go along with these, that might spark a thought in all of us that gives us another angle to help make producers profitable. And we need to be progressive about it, because when you come from where we come from, where they're shutting our waters off, they're making farming and ranching the bad guy, even though we're arguably feeding the world in the San Joaquin Valley out there, when they're making us the bad guy, when we've got to go to the store and buy third world products, or products from a third world country that we don't know if they're nutritious, we don't know if they're safe, but we no longer can produce food efficiently, nutritiously, and safely in this country, we've got a problem. And so we've got to continue to spread that message from the ground up, that grassroots movement. We've got to get people aligned and thinking alike to move forward, and not just continue to react and fight about these few issues that maybe aren't that important in the big scheme.
Well, yeah, especially in today's political climate, whether it's in your own state legislatures or in the nation's capital, it's pretty mind-boggling just how little these folks are getting done. And when they do work on something, you need to go in there with a unified voice. And I don't mean to keep beating this horse to death, but you really do have to go in there when you get that opportunity, whether it's with a staffer or that member of Congress, he or she directly. You got to have your ducks in a row and be able to utilize those few minutes to have your elevator speech ready and to be able to promote your industry. And the last thing those folks want to hear is, you guys, we've got the cattle industry fighting with the sheep industry. We've got the grain growers fighting with the pulse growers. Nobody can get along. And I'm telling you, you guys know it as well as I do. The agricultural population is flat shrinking across this great country of ours. And Brad, diving a little bit deeper, we're getting fewer and fewer sheep producers in America. And somehow we have to collectively work together to try to figure out how to keep the younger generation either involved or get them involved. And of course, one of the reasons that ASI got so excited with working with LMA and other livestock organizations is trying to create some incentives out there to speak with a unified voice, get the younger generation involved, or get people back involved with sheep production.
Yeah, Russell, I think those are the first steps that we need. And as I was visiting with Joe, we need to increase our winning percentage in ag. We win a few battles, but we need to have a higher batting average than we have at the moment, and not by a little, by quite a little. So I think that's the motivation here, and we, our detractors speak with one voice constantly, and we continue to be a little bit on the divided side from time to time, especially with our representatives in Congress. So hugely important that we get on the same page and work together and unify around some major issues. And yes, the sheep industry in the U.S., on the traditional side continues to shrink. We are growing on the non-traditional or the ethnic side, and so there's a market shift there that we're experiencing in the sheep industry, which any of your members here that handle sheep are experiencing every day because they deal with a lot of the ethnic trade in these local sale barns. So we continue to the only thing constant is change, and we need to be on top of that change, and then continuing to give our young people as in my personal life, my brothers and I have 2 brothers, so there's 3 of us in the operation. We currently have 5 30-somethings involved as well. So we have to figure out how to go from 3 to 5, and that presents its unique challenges, and so we're in the middle of this transition process, and it's been very interesting.
That's why you always got to have a good accountant standing by, to help navigate these uncharted waters we're kind of all trying to get through right now. And Carol, when we were on our panel call, a week or 10 days ago, all of us talking about being here in OKC and some of the topics that we're going to cover, and of course, taxes and death are the only 2 things that are certain in life. And, we're all here alive, so we've covered that one.
Thanks for the positive thinking.
I know, right, Jake? But when we talk about taxes, though, this really is your area of expertise. And one thing that stuck in my mind during our call a few days ago was, like, when it comes to estate planning and talking about that dreaded death tax and, some of those other tax incentives out there that we're able to take advantage of right now because of some favorable tax laws, they're all going to go away here in a couple years. And we're going to be back to square one. And guess what, folks? Square one really wasn't that much fun for any of us. We gave even more and more of our personal property and our money to the government. And we don't like that. We don't like that. But when it comes to the death tax, Carol, you said we really need to start those conversations earlier and even engage, our kids, or in some cases, our kids and now our grandkids, who are just waiting in the wings that when we're out at events like this, oh yeah, we always say, we can't wait to pass it on to the next generation. We love the fact that it's a family-run operation, but we never talk about what we need to talk about, and that's setting them up for success instead of failure, and really diving deep into the death tax conversation with them.
In our business, we encouraged as much as possible, let's create a team. Let's sit down. Let's start having the conversation. Every single family is different. Every single family came from different backgrounds. Communication amongst ag people historically has not been a strong suit. I feel that the young people want to talk a lot more now. And so what we would do is encourage, the first thing we would do, first of all, profitability, when we talk about that, is being able to pay your bills. So you're going to want to encourage conversation on how are we going to make this work, get our bills paid so we have something to pass down, number one. And then number two, giving everyone the courage to come together. So in our situation, you would have kids that were interested in staying and kids who were not. And then you would talk with mom and dad, and it came to them maybe from grandma and grandpa, and it would be that conversation of it's not going to be equal, it's going to be fair. And how do you create that? You would enlist a good attorney, and it is an ongoing conversation, and you work to create a plan for the family at this time. And part of the reason is to start the teaching. There's no replacement for youth, energy, and new ideas. They have to be at the table with you. Those of our clients that we saw embrace that, it was so rewarding to see what was possible to have happen. Then you do also have the conversations about the estate tax. I was still in practice when the law that's in right now was enacted, and I remember it was going to sunset, and was it going to come back? Were the higher levels of exemptions that you could pass away and not pay estate tax going to remain? Was it going to fall again? It was a terrible time, because then it was, do we need to gift, and do we need to this? And people were starting to scramble. Well, we know that, in fact, they did bring back the higher level, and it
continued to be adjusted for inflation. Now they're talking about the same exact thing at the end of 2025, down to levels that are not reasonable. In production agriculture, especially in the cattle business, your land is your asset. Land is not cash. You need the land to have the business, you need the land to raise the animals, but yet the values always go up. It's a very big issue. In my opinion, agriculture needs to come together and have the discussion on that production ag, for us to raise our own food in all aspects, needs to be considered for some kind of exemption, that we are not subject to this merry-go-round that goes on, and we are depending on people in Congress to vote on our future every so many years. When you're trying to plan for your kids, give them stability, give them what they want to hear, to give them a future, give them hope. And so it's very complicated. Every family was very different. I worked with a great attorney who always said, for every problem, there's a solution, Carol. We just have to keep trying. Because families are all very different people within their family. And mom and dad would get stressed, and
Oh, yeah.
those conversations weren't. And so we prided ourselves in being able to communicate and talk. And also, because I had an ag background, that did help. You know, well, you understand, they would say, and it helps so much. But it was an honor to be a trusted advisor to help. So my main thing, find that good CPA, find that good attorney. Never too soon to just start the conversation if you have hopes for the next generation to come.
Well, that right there is what makes Brad's story more possible, right? Those
Right.
5 young people coming back to the family farm. It's an uncomfortable discussion at first, but to incentivize those 5 to come back, not go get another job, to come back into production agriculture where we need them, they have that conversation. It's a lot easier, even though it's uncomfortable at the time.
Well, and the other part of that too, Carol, you know, is your message in there that it doesn't all have to be equal for all kids.
Right.
You know, and that's okay. I think if we as parents and grandparents, you know, can accept that, and we can deliver that in a decent way where we don't start a family war, you know, I think the children within themselves truly understand that there's always one or two that do most of the work, and then the one that goes off and does something else and then always wants to come back but never does. Doesn't mean they can't have a part in that agricultural operation. It just means their part might not be as big. And I don't want to be a bunch of talking heads up here, you know, saying all these things. And so, I mean, these are hard discussions that we're not just sharing with you guys, but I hope the 5 of us are also having within our own families. And I just want to put you guys a little bit on the spot. I mean, Matt, are you having some of these estate tax discussions like with your family right now?
Yeah, we have been for years, and fortunately for myself and my wife Amy, my mom and dad had a lot of those hard conversations with my dad's father 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago maybe, when they started, and 60 years ago. And consequently, because they had those then, ours are a little easier. They went through some challenging times with that generational transfer. I watched those as a kid, and I knew in my mind as a little kid, I didn't want to come back to a ranch. I didn't want to go through what they went through with his dad and the farm crisis of the 1980s. And so when I hit the ground leaving Eureka High School in May of '92, I was not coming back. And I went through 4 years of college. I graduated in '96, and you all remember what the cattle market was like in '96. You know, we're talking 60-cent calves and 62-cent fed cattle. We had an inversion there. I mean, it was a messed up market. I think we have to remember, as we talk about having these conversations, which you're exactly right, we're not good at talking about anything of substance, whether it's our family or our industry family. But when we do talk about things as farmers and ranchers, what do we talk about? The negative part. We talk about what's wrong. When it has been dry, we talk about the drought. When it finally starts raining, we bitch about the mud. I mean, we are so good at finding what's wrong outside our kitchen window that we forget to celebrate what's right. And when we talk about unity, I agree wholeheartedly. We can't continue to go to DC and be the second or the third or the fourth group of alphabet soup with a cowboy hat on to talk to that staffer in DC and sometimes talk about the same issue from 4 different sides. We have to figure out how. There's, 700 and some thousand livestock producers in the U.S.? We have to figure out how to agree on enough to actually get something done. And I think that probably gets at more than just having this industry unity for the sake of industry unity, Joe. It gets to the standpoint of us putting ourselves in someone else's shoes and walking there for a while. And when we do that, as a group of livestock market owners, of livestock producers, of livestock feeders, and even the evil livestock packer processors and folks that are taking it the last yard, I think that we come at better solutions. And that goes back to that family question and that conversation that we have to have. Those are hard conversations, whether it's around the family dinner table with the attorney or the accountant, or whether it's around the big board table with people who you think are your enemy when in fact they're your partner in getting this beef to where it needs to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, are you having some of these tough conversations in California with your family and other partners?
We've had the tough conversations, but I think that when you relate it back to why we're talking about it today, what we've learned through the start of this producer profitability initiative is it does seem to come back to these tax issues. That seems to be the thing that a lot want to talk about. And so when we have meetings with our producers, Cattlemen's Association meetings, meetings hosted by the vaccine rep or one of those, we start to bring ideas up about producer profitability. We relate it back to some of these tax issues, and we try to create that uncomfortable conversation with our producers. And I know that it seems weird and it seems kind of out of our window as market owners and operators because we're probably pretty good at what we do. We sell cattle, we try to get the most for our customers, we try to bring value to them that way. I think our role has to be more because we need them to stay in business. We need them long term. And that role is for us as LMA members, market operators, that's to create this conversation with them. I've had it in my family, partially prompted because of this and some other issues, watching what Carol's seen in California where the land values are so great and so high, if this isn't planned properly, they have to sell everything just to pay the estate taxes. And so we've had those conversations, but I think it gets back to this room and why it's relevant today is we've got to push that to our producers and create that conversation. There may be another few issues we can hook our hat on, but the death tax, the inheritance tax seems to be one right now that works. They're popping questions at us.
Yeah, I see that. I kept looking out. I need to look down every once in a while. But, part of the issue and part of the challenge that we have in agriculture is we're just, it seems like every generation's getting further and further removed from rural America and production agriculture. And these men and women are also becoming, they're getting of age where they can vote. And they can totally make a difference even in a rural state like Colorado. And believe it or not, right now there's an initiative in Colorado coming up this November that would ban meat processing within the city limits of Denver. And Brad, I want to direct this next question specifically to you because it's Superior Farms that has the target on them. One of the last remaining large sheep processing facilities in America. What's going on with that? ASI is fighting it tooth and nail. How can the LMA, this membership, and the rest of us help the sheep industry with this incredible and unfortunate situation going on in Colorado?
Yeah, thanks, Russell. I think for those of you that were in the other day and saw the market-to-market report where the animal rights group laid out their agenda, this is not going to be a unique thing to Colorado or Denver. They've already started efforts in Portland, San Diego. I mean, it's going to go throughout the nation. So ASI, along with Superior Farms, have worked side by side and other ag organizations to hire a marketing company to help us get out the message of why they should vote against this. people can contribute to that. It's Stop the Ban. So if you Google Stop the Ban, it'll come up, and they're taking contributions there to help in this marketing effort. And to directly do what was talked in here about the other day is contact the voters directly, not be at the higher level. We want to get to the voters and educate them on why this is a really bad idea. And it's also the industry's thought that this needs to be put down hard. We don't want a close vote. We need to put it down hard. So the resources are being used. A lot of resources are being used, and hopefully there'll be a successful outcome to that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it takes all of us, even if you don't live in Colorado, to actively participate and visit that website, Stop the Ban. You know, the more that we can get on that website and, you know, hopefully, you know, pump the brakes a little bit on stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, I just would reiterate, this is not going to be unique to Denver. It's coming to all of our cities. So I think the better effort we can make to really mash it will help.
Yeah, for sure. Carol, you got a question up there on the screen. Your clients were in all aspects of agriculture, and you were able to see just how they received exemptions and subsidies. How are cow-calf producers at a disadvantage, and what's your advice in staying viable?
This was quite the eye-opener for me at a very young age. We did have a lot of dairies in our area, we still do. And when we would do tax returns every year, and I would see federal subsidy money coming into these tax returns very steadily, all of them, the big ones, the little ones, all of them. And they continued to grow, and the more I learned about it, the more I learned how united the dairy industry truly is. And long ago, years ago, when I was young, they went and they lobbied, and they became united as one, something you're talking about, and they were able to sell it saying children need milk. They really went to the heart of it. Well, children also need protein, and children need a life as well to look forward to live with in our own families too. Back to that, how are the cow-calf producers at a disadvantage? It's very low. It's not ever had remotely the same kind of thing. I am not a government lover of they will take care of us. That's not what I'm proposing. But one of the things, I listened intensely to the beef on dairy conversation previously. And that hurts my heart a little bit, I have to be honest, because dairy people are good businessmen. They have come together. But now we're talking about them coming into our industry with beef on dairy, and they have this subsidy money coming their way already. They are number 2 behind row crops in federal subsidies. Beef cattle are very low. I think that conversation needs to be had. We're all trying to pay our bills. We have cattle in 2 states. We see the differences in costs between California and Nebraska now. We run a registered Angus herd. We have bull sales in both places now. But all of our costs, no different than the dairy people's costs, are going up. Taxes, insurance, so many costs have inflated. We need to be part of that conversation because we're at a disadvantage. If that is also happening, they have a right to do this. They are competitive business people. The dairy people are. They're getting bigger. There are fewer smaller producers, but I feel that we have to have a conversation. And like I said, my first instinct is like this, talking about government, but we're at a disadvantage. They have a big disadvantage, and we had a lot of dairy clients, and I was taken back thinking, how did they get all this? How does this work?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I just want that to be part of the conversation too, because when we're talking about profitability, it's being able to pay our bills, and not only pay our bills, provide a living for our children to want to come back and be a part of agriculture and talk about what's possible. And one of the main reasons my husband and I wanted to do this is to raise our kids how we were raised, and we're so happy that we did. We are so happy that that's what we were able to do. That was our goal. So our story is different, but also it's to encourage young people, even if you don't come from a background, if it's something you want to do, you can. I would see clients and people that loved cattle get into the business, maybe had something else going but get started. You don't want to discount those either. You don't want to discount the new starters going, this is the life I'd like to lead, but it has to be viable. So conversations, differences.
Absolutely. Jake is chomping at the bit.
Well,
over there.
she made me think. You know, when we first started our listening sessions, we went to different states and we gathered. Matt referenced the one in Kansas. We did a couple in California, and I brought what I thought was a really uniquely diverse group together in Northern California, and we had a very good conversation. Farmers, ranchers, all of us together that did both. Then we flew to the middle part of the state down to Harris Ranch. We had a conversation with, was it 2 or 3 dairymen in the room? And it goes back to what the unification idea and what Carol was talking about, the dairy industry. Those guys just kept talking about how awful we were in agriculture about telling our story. We have a great story to tell. We're not very good at it. The dairymen in our state were brilliant when they started the happy cows that come from California. It made other states upset way back in the day, but it really helped the California dairy industry and the milk market. And we learned that night at Harris Ranch with 3 or 4 of us sitting around the table what they've accomplished by telling their story. And I think nationwide, if we can do more, it leads into that question I know Matt wants to touch on, the unification idea. And I think if we're better at telling our story and doing that, it can help that unify.
Yeah, I agree. And that top question, no, second now, top from the top, what does unity look like when some trade association staff or leaders don't want to get along? I think it looks exactly like it does today. It looks like chaos.
Yep.
It looks like turf battles that are left over from 20 and 30 and, good gosh, maybe 50 and 75 years ago, instead of looking forward. All these questions that we had on the survey, none of them asked us about things that happened in the past. All of them asked us about, where do you see X in 5 years or in 10 years or in 20 years? Why don't we as an industry, not just LMA, not just NCBA, not any of the other alphabet soups out there, why don't we actually, with our actions, do what we say up here on these types of screens? And that's what I think we have to do. I think we have to forget about what happened in 96 or 98 or 68 or 2000 or however far back you want to go. And those are hard moves to make, especially in a tradition-laden business like we are. It is a blessing and a curse to have this many generational operations and this many long-term employees of this or that association. It's phenomenal, the institutional knowledge that our families, ranches, farms, associations have. But it is such an anchor that drags us back and doesn't allow us to let bygones be bygones, figure out what works to get us where we want to be in 5 and 10 years. Again, celebrate the wins that we've had in industry, because we've had a ton of them. We all want to say, again, what's wrong and what we don't like and why we won't be a member of this organization. We rarely say, whether we liked it at the time or not, look what value-based marketing has done for us as an industry. Look what a focus on the consumer has done for us as an industry. Did we have to change the way we did our businesses? Yeah. But you all sitting right here, you made those changes. And probably, as an industry, made more money in the process.
And we have to remind these staff and leaders of these organizations that they work for us.
That's exactly right.
We are spoiled at LMA because we have such great REO staff, such great staff in Kansas City, where we feel like we can pick up the phone every day of the week and someone somewhere is going to answer. At these other organizations, and I'm not picking on any of them, but NCBA, RCAF, U.S. Cattle Feeders, Farm Bureaus, it's not like that. There's a certain segment that engage at a level, but sometimes these staffs and fighting amongst themselves at different organizations get so caught up in that they forget they actually work for the dues-paying member on a daily basis. And we have to demand better from those organizations. We have to demand, all of us, LMA included in that, we've got to come back together.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that I would push back on is that doesn't exist at any of the other organizations. I think that you and your members are better at, because of what you have to do every day in working with the folks that bring you cattle, you're better at, when there's a problem, You don't sit in your cafe and gripe about it to your neighbor. You pick up the phone and you call Mark or Chelsea or your rep or whomever the case may be. Sometimes we as producers would rather go to your cafe and gripe than pick up the phone or write a check and join to fix it.
And that's why LMA plays such a pivotal role in this, because you come tell us, then we can go tell somebody. That goes on. I know we.
That's just what I was going to say, Jake. From my seat, LMA is uniquely aligned here because you talk to the guys in the hills every day, and some of us in these organizations do get tunnel vision, and you guys are uniquely aligned to bring this to your members or to your customers, and I think it's huge.
It is huge, and if you think about just kind of wrapping that discussion up on this question, I mean, what an incredible waste of dues dollars when they're already pretty limited, whatever association or industry you're talking about, to sit there and be fighting amongst ourselves even within these associations, and we have so much good and important work that we really need to be tackling. Believe it or not, time is winding down on us here, and there's a few more questions on there. Brad, I want to direct this next question to you. I mean, the bottom question on the screen, I mean, I'm not going to read that. Everybody in here can see that question, including us, but how important really are these intensive education programs for ranch management and ag business management, to help us through these kind of uncharted waters?
Yeah, no, I think they're important. The University of Wyoming's just done the same thing that TCU did. So I think they're hugely important, and they've had a lot of support to do that. I think, speaking for myself personally, what I learned in college was how to learn. We learn every day. We don't stop learning every day. And the ranch management techniques have changed over the last 50 years, which they needed to. They will continue to change. So I think the main thing that we need to get through the younger generation's head is never stop learning, ever.
Carol, any follow-up on that?
A combination mentoring, mentoring those that want to learn. I believe that is just so important, sharing our knowledge, sharing what we know, and reaching out to those who do want to learn, the young ones. For instance, there's young men in California that their grandfather had a dairy, and he bought a beef ranch not far away, and they became very interested in the registered Angus business, and to this day, they now are some of our best help. They have their own small herd. We got them started. They're wonderful young men getting married, and I liked when it was said, our 3 children, we raised them to go find their happiness, find their way. They have located in different places in the United States actually today, but they still love to come home for the bull sale, the people, the camaraderie part, they'll always love that. But I think all of us can reach out and mentor and invite them in and teach them hands-on as well. I think that's just very important to do.
Yeah, I think it just gets back to no matter at what level, whether it's the local, state, national, international, I mean, just get involved. Be involved with something, I mean, I think Matt and Jake both drove it home during this panel. I mean, we have to get better, and we have to do more of it, of telling our great story. And Matt, that top question, give us your thoughts on that. What can rural ag-based counties do in states like New Mexico and Colorado to tip the scales in an ag favor against the Metroplex's majority vote? Something that we talked with Brad about, that meat packer ban within the city limits of Denver. I mean, this is only going to continue to grow in America's metropolitan areas.
We've got to bring the ranch to town. We have got to be more than just transparent, more than just telling our story. We have to, I hate even to speak this because I know there'll be some Montanans in the room that hate it, but we have to be the real house husbands of Yellowstone. Yellowstone, whether you like the
one
way
that brings up Yellowstone.
Okay,
We almost made
so
it an hour.
you Montanans are all the same, and I get why you hate it. But here's what I capture from Yellowstone.
Hell, I finally, when I walk through an airport, people actually say, you must be from Montana
You
instead
got to
of
be
Texas.
John Dutton. It's John Dutton. Yeah, see, it's brought you back on the cow country map. What Yellowstone tells those people that know nothing about our business is that family will put their heritage and their legacy and their love of the land and the livestock above anything else they do. And that is a message that the anti-meat campaign has told the exact opposite of for decades. And so whether we have a train station or not, we can still capture what we can learn from Yellowstone and everything that Taylor Sheridan has done is that people do give a damn about what we're doing. And if we will tell them and we don't have to tell them about every detail. They sure don't want to hear about the science, which is hard for me because I'm a scientist. But if we can put it into context that proves to that person making a beef industry decision or making a voting decision on a ballot initiative that we love the land as much as any other environmentalist around, that we care for that animal better than any Humane Society person around, we've won. And we can do that with these little things, and the next generation, those 5 kids are way faster and better at this than even I am, and I've gotten better, but my kids are way faster. We've got the power to do that, but we need to share that, and we've got to share the good and the bad, the reality of what it is that we do. And we've got to know that they want that, and there's value on it.
Well, absolutely right. You know, I mean, we talk about the challenges of, it seems like every generation is getting further removed from rural America and production agriculture, but at the same time, I mean, studies and surveys continue to show food consumers want a relationship with their food producers, and we have to capitalize on that, and that's exactly what we've been talking about here. Even though we do face some unique and uphill challenges with some of these big issues we've been talking about, at the same time, they want a direct relationship with you guys, and everybody that's not here. And we have to be able and be in a position to really capitalize on that. And, you know, as we kind of wind down, you know, one of the questions on there is we've been talking about producer profitability and everything that we've been talking about within the past hour. You know, Jake, you know, how do folks go about doing something like this back in their own communities, you know, even if it's at the local level or a state level? I mean, get these conversations started.
I think it looks different for every state. Joe and Forrest and you guys in Montana did an excellent job with engaging each and every livestock market. I think that in our state that's a little bit more spread out. I'm looking at David Macedo right here. We maybe engage more industry groups to create this conversation. But I will tell you the best way that every one of you can do it, and I encourage you to do it, is go to your REO today when you see them and talk to them about how you can engage your community in this discussion. They will be there to support you. The LMA will be there to help you. And you might show up and there might be 40 people and 2 active participants, but I guarantee all 40 of those people will start thinking about it, will start talking about it to their neighbors, and that's how we start to make an impact. That's that grassroots movement. So we can't be scared to do it. We can't be scared of failure. If I held one at my sale barn right outside of Sacramento, if I didn't personally call all of my customers to invite them, we might not get great attendance. But if I had 5 people in there and could make a difference, it would work. And so I'm going to address that next question as well. Do you believe producer profitability will be a question in the WLAC semifinals? I have absolutely no idea. But I would tell you,
but
as participants,
that build up to the anticipation was great, Jake. Thank you.
Yeah, as participants, just relax, be yourself, and answer the questions honestly and efficiently, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are kind of running out of time here, and I think we're going to try to go to the Manti and ask 3 more questions in the phone survey. And
Can I do the top one?
yeah, go ahead.
There's your answer, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, okay.
I'm probably going to dive on a sword. Joe, you told me to give him hell, so I'm going to give him hell. The beef checkoff is a lightning rod amongst every organization that is on the face of this earth, in this country. Beef industry organizations love to hate on the checkoff. We love to hate on a lot of different things. But in my opinion, that It has played a role in producer profitability. We just don't see it. The things that we want to talk about on the beef checkoff is what? Beef, it's what's for dinner ads, right? And we're not seeing them. You know why? Because we're not supposed to. We have a freezer full of beef. We're not the target market. What I think the beef checkoff has done has been in the background. It's been in the beef quality assurance when we moved the shots from the round to the neck. And we added, I don't know how many millions of dollars from the consumer who didn't any longer have a big old abscess in their top sirloin. It is in the surveys and the studies that allowed us as cowboys who rarely get to a meat case to understand how that meat case needs to be shaped. So yes, I understand the first person to profit from that is the retailer, and then the packer gets a little bit of that money, but guess what? Those 60-cent calves in 1996 that are now $3.80 have a little bit of something to do with all of those little scientific things that we changed in management. I don't know that I can say that whoever the voice of the beef checkoff added all that much money to what that carcass is worth, but I think the science that we used and changed some of our methods and our management gained us a lot. And so in that regard, I think the beef checkoff has been successful, my opinion.
And you can like it or hate it, but we won't know directly unless we
it
go
takes
ask.
forever.
We all have connections. There's a few of them here of folks that sit on that board that make those decisions. If we have an issue that we want to fight, let's go talk to them about it.
Well,
Let's
and you
ask
guys
if they
think the
wanna
beef
help.
checkoff is operating on a pretty small budget. Brad, talk about what it's like to be in the U.S. sheep industry and work with the lamb checkoff allocations. It is minute compared to the beef industries.
Yeah, and it presents its own unique challenges. We just got to be more efficient and try to get a bigger bang for our buck. But I think all the checkoffs have done a great job with that. And I think you guys bring up a great point that if we aren't going to talk about our product, who is? And it's hugely important because I promise you the packers are focused on doing what they do best, and they're really good at it. And they need to be good at it because they need to be efficient. And we lived in the sheep industry through a period of time where we relied on the packers to tell our story. They did a horrible job. So we have to tell that story, and that's why I think the checkoffs have been super helpful for all the commodities.
Oh, sorry, Brad. If you want one more perspective on what you can do as producers and as market owners who pay into that checkoff, not to promote the podcast, but go back a couple episodes on Practically Ranching, and I had the CBB, which is Cattlemen's Beef Board chairman, producer from Kentucky, and we talk about that thing. Andy Bishop did a great job, in my opinion, as a both producer and a leader of the beef checkoff, talking about the fact that they're not perfect and they want to be better. And they get better when you all talk to your CBB rep or serve on the CBB board and make that checkoff even better. There's a lot of different ways it can be, but rest assured that it's not just some ivory tower up there that we're sending money to and they're never listening or never getting any producer input.
I just want to know from Carol, the fair but equal question that was up there, do you pick your favorite or do you pick the kid that you think might come back to the family farm?
The one that's going to make you the most money. Come on, Jake, what's the matter with you?
Well, what we found is every family was different, and we spoke with mom and dad. We would have meetings with mom and dad. We would have meetings with the kids. We would honor what was said confidentially with mom and dad and with the kids, and then what we did was work together on trying to bring the conversation together. One thing I will let everyone know, when we got through this, and moms and dads didn't always agree on what should happen either. That's another thing. It went better for that family. They were a better unit. They knew what was coming. They knew the expectations. When they said, how do you decide fair versus equal? It's very individual to each operation. Maybe they would get a piece of land that a long-term lease was set up, that it would stay in the family, but they would get income off of that land, a way to keep the land in. We would set up family limited partnerships, and we would put the kids that were off into that. We would have rolling leases. So from the date of mom or dad's death, it would roll out 10 years. And the other thing to remember, it's so important to start the conversations early, because what if a death happens out of order? Everyone thinks, oh, it's going to be dad at 90. I heard in Denver this year, when my husband and I were there, we were talking to a good friend out of Idaho, and he said, I've done everything that you said needs to be done, and we've done this and we've done that, and my neighbor did the same thing with the entities, with the gifting, etc. And he goes, my neighbor had one son on the ranch, and he went to the mailbox and he passed away. And dad was alive, and then dad had to work with his wife that was left to try to keep it all in the family. There's a lot of stories that are difficult but possible to work through. With no communication, they go much worse. So my suggestion always will be, come to the table, start the conversation. My final chapter, it took 11 years, but we had a big family and 4 different units, and dad passed away in an accident. It took 11 years to settle it, and we did it right before I was done. We got it done. My husband and I had a $100 bet that we weren't going to get it done, and I won. You know, it was really a difficult situation, but it taught me that you can get through it and keep trying and set everybody up to keep going. So that was the worst case scenario. I happily had some really good, happy scenarios as well, where mom and dad, and there was cohesiveness, and the kids respected mom and dad's wishes too. But mom and dad were open to hearing what their thoughts were. You've got to be open to what they want as well.
Right. Well, we just have a few minutes left before we dismiss the panel and dismiss the audience for lunch next door. But I guess I just kind of want to wrap things up with some final thoughts from each of you, and I just want to, plant the seed, maybe a question, or get your thoughts, provoke your thoughts a little bit with those final thoughts. Another good quote from our good friend Joe Goggins. We've heard him say to us and a lot of this membership, and of course his customers across the West, for far too long, this industry has played defense. It's always been defense, and defenses, as Joe would say, they win championships. But you know what? It's okay, and it's high time for the U.S. livestock industry to play a little offense. And as we talk about producer profitability, Jake?
Art, I think that this is the single biggest thing that us as market operators, dealers, will do. I'm 45 years old, in the middle of my life, in the middle of my career, and I've seen some stuff and I haven't. But I will tell you that I think this is our opportunity to make the biggest impact we ever have. We talk about the high cattle market. We brag about auctions we've sold. We brag about deals we've made. That's all important. But the most important thing is to keep our producers in business. The most important thing is for us who have the resources, who have the contacts, to go back to where we live and to create this unification, to create this movement, to continue to push. It will be the most important thing any of us do for the long-term viability of agriculture. We have to be proactive. We have to play offense, like the man said. And I would challenge each and every one of you as market operators, leave your comfort zone. Leave that auction block. Leave calling customers and talking about the market. Call them, talk to them about these bigger issues. Host a listening session. Bring people together and talk about the difficult things. It's the most important thing we'll do.
Brad, final thoughts?
Yeah, Jake, I totally agree. And I think the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I think it's time we step outside of our comfort zone and do something different and increase our batting percentage.
Matt?
I just told my son the other day when cattle got out because he forgot to fix the one creek gap that I said, go to first and do that before you put all the other wires up, that you've got to do the hard things first. Do the hard things, the things that you don't want to do. To go have those conversations with the next generation, or to go have that meeting that Jake talked about, or to go to some kind of consumer event, put yourself in that zone where it's not comfortable. Do that first, and that will make more of a difference than you realize, and you'll actually get to it. I'll quote 2 guys. I love quotations. Both very wise philosophers, Benjamin Franklin and Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. So I just heard this first one the other day. Benjamin Franklin said, "We must all hang together, or most assuredly, we will hang separately." And I love that quote. And then we fast forward to Jerry Garcia, a couple years after Franklin, said, "Somebody has got to do something about it. And it's just incredibly pathetic that it has to be us." It's us. It's not the industry. We were talking about this last night. We are the industry. Don't find what's wrong with the organization that you don't think that you want to support or join or send whatever money to make sure that they help you carry that message. Don't find what you don't like about them. Find what they're capable of and then go help them get it done.
Carol?
Have those hard conversations with your family. It's so vital and important that youth continues to be involved, that they believe that they can make a good living, that they can raise their children, that they can have the life that they want to have. Go have those hard conversations. Make the meeting with your accountant, with your attorney. Start it now. You'll never be sorry. And good luck with it. It's not easy, but there's people out there like we did that we were honored to be a trusted advisor to help families work through these issues. And I know there's still really good CPAs and attorneys out there today that want to do the same.
Absolutely. Ladies,
I want to add one thing. I want to thank you. You and your network took hold of this months ago and have really been a big messenger for us, for LMA, for producers. And I know you're a little bit more regional. You're growing greatly, but we appreciate all that Western Ag Network has done. You've done a great job helping us.
Thank you. We are very proud and very much pleased to be able to help the LMA and all the different trade associations out there. And thank you again for inviting me down. But what I started to say is, ladies and gentlemen, let's give the panelists a big round of applause too. And we've covered a lot of ground in the past hour or so, and truly you have an asset in the Livestock Marketing Association on this very big and important topic, producer profitability. And of course, LMA took the lead last fall, and we're just trying to start that grassroots movement out there in the countryside, and it truly is on fire out there. So as we leave Oklahoma City later this weekend, let's take this passion, let's take this momentum back to our rural communities, our auction markets, and our farms and ranches, and let's keep it going and always feel like you can utilize the LMA and their resources, their leadership, their staff, everyone, and you can learn more by visiting producerprofitability.com. And we appreciate your time, and we appreciate the panelists' time, and gosh, let's have the guts to take this livestock industry into the next little bit here and do something different than how we've always done it. With that, we'll go ahead and conclude. Lunch is next door, and continue on and have a great convention.